Generating traffic and sales can be a challenge for online merchants. But selling on the Walmart Marketplace puts your products in front of millions of customers who shop on Walmart.com. And right now, sellers who join Walmart Marketplace can save up to 50% on referral and fulfillment fees for the first 90 days. So get started today. Head over to marketplace.walmart.com/savings. That's marketplace.walmart.com/savings.
Welcome to E-commerce Conversations, a podcast by Practical E-commerce.
What is going on, Internet? Eric Banwell's back again with another amazing episode from E-commerce Conversations. I hope all is going well on the other side of the Internet. On the other side of the Internet from me, Tim with the Ranged Leather. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. Stoked to be here.
Yeah, I'm stoked to have you as well. I think this is going to be a fun podcast. Before we hit record, Tim had just given me a little bit of a nugget that the startup weekend that former guest Pete Taylor with Spiceology and many other projects and Beard Brand with me and my partners was also attended by Tim.
Yeah. I was just a kid, just a boy with stars in his eyes about business.
Yeah.
But it was fun.
Did you join a team at that startup weekend?
I think I did. I was trying to think back. I don't remember, like the one before that I had pitched an app and I did the whole thing. And then that one I came back for and just joined as some like marketing help or something. So, but I can't remember what that was or who it was with. It's a while ago.
Because I did them too. I think I did the first two ones. And the first one I pitched my wine app and then I built a team. And the second one was on Lindsay's team. We did a parking lot app to help.
Oh, I might remember that actually.
Arcade.
Because that was before all the meters had apps on them and stuff.
I mean, it was basically like if you had a church near a stadium, it was a way for you to generate revenue. Yeah, when you were essentially closed for the time of the big game, and then a way for people to essentially rent in those places. I think something has come out since that offers that, but yeah, I mean, that was a lot of fun. So it was always interesting because I always kind of had a chip on my shoulder for the Barter's Closets guys, not because they're bad dudes. They're actually really amazing dudes. Connor was always fun to be around and it was always energetic being around him. But I felt like, with his connection to his dad, he just had like kind of I want to call it an easy pass because entrepreneurship is never easy, but had a leg up on the people like me with no history.
Just getting into it. Yeah, definitely.
So you sold to them, huh? You've already had a successful exit?
I mean, I don't think you could call it that. I mean, technically, yes. Shares were distributed from my app thing to Barter's Closet, and I joined the team and did a bunch of stuff. I mean, if people want to dig on YouTube, there's like a vlog from way back in the day of like me and like a couple other guys just trying like Google ads and Facebook ads for Barter's Closet. It's pretty hilarious. But yeah, technically an acquisition. I also got a write-up in GeekWire, which was like the coolest thing that had happened to me up to that point. So I felt pretty big time as like a freshman in college, but this is not good for my pride. But
put that on your LinkedIn profile, successfully exited, your first startup.
Yeah.
I think it's funny because, obviously I've got ties in Spokane, but I guess you're guest number like 4 or 5 who's from the Spokane area. So there's a surprisingly high amount of entrepreneurship that's happening in that town. But you're in Wyoming now.
Yes, with Ranged Leather in Laramie, Wyoming.
Yeah, talk about that transition because you're running as the COO there.
Yes. Yeah, and it's interesting. Like the Range story and my story are kind of intertwined, it's actually hilarious. It kind of Range started similarly, I think, to Beard Brand, where it was Kickstarter, and it was like right after that startup weekend that we were talking about. It was like the next year he spun up a Kickstarter, Kyle did, for the wallets, and it was great, and that's how it all started. I went from Barter's Closet, and I kind of stayed in the marketing route, went into just marketing agency life, ad buying and the works, that whole realm, and pretty much built my career in that space. And then for me, Range was a freelance client kind of throughout. Like as he grew, he could sustain more orders. We were still friends because Kyle's from Laramie, but he went to Spokane because his wife was finishing PT school in Spokane. So he happened to start it when I happened to be there right around the time that you were there and were starting. And then he went back to Laramie and I stayed in Spokane and did my thing. So, but yeah, and then our stories kind of came back together last year. Range was growing like crazy. He bought a building downtown Laramie because everything's made by like actual people's hands here. So bought a space downtown and he called me up, was like, hey, I don't know if you're how you're feeling about agency life, but if you ever want to go brand side, you should come work for me and help me grow Range. And I was like, absolutely not. I don't want to do that. I like my agency life. But ultimately kind of got burnt out on the agency side of things. And then small town Laramie running a leather brand just looked really good in my mind and made the jump. And it's been amazing ever since then.
Talk about the difference between working in an agency and working in-house brand.
Yeah. I mean, so there's pros and cons of both sides, right? Like there's on the agency side, you have access to a bunch of different businesses, a bunch of different people. You can expand your network well. You learn from a lot of both like the brands themselves that you're working for, but also like your team and the people you work with. And there's a lot of cross-pollinating of information there. And the access is really cool. But I mean, you're basically on the hook all the time. You're spending millions of dollars every day for different brands, and the stress can wear on you that way, especially when it's like, oh no, that ad is broken or something's wrong with it and it's middle of the night. There's that kind of stuff, which, you know, there's good and bad to that, and being able to design your schedule versus brand side. What's been really nice for me is being able to go deep with one thing and not have to be surface level across 10 brands. It's just like I can deeply think about Range and every little aspect of Range, and I can spend 2 entire days just thinking about our welcome flow or something, and that's totally fine and worth my time. So that's nice. But then I lose access to like what's going on broadly in the space. But I've been like working through how to mitigate that with things like Mentor Pass, talking to people, talking to experts. Twitter obviously is great for just chatting with folks and learning from other brands. And I still have friends on the agency side that I connect with like monthly to keep tabs. So, but yeah, definitely a totally different animal.
What are some of the things that, you know, you kind of learn from other brands within the agency life? You know, I feel like, you know, are there any secrets that are really traded? Is it like what kind of content is working? Is it, you know, just what kind of audiences are working, or where are you picking up those learnings?
Yeah, it's kind of like it's by industry. So if it's like, you know, a whole bunch of men's care products or skincare products or this or that, there's typically a lot of those things. I mean, you can find like this type of creative is working across the board, or we happen to try this kind of, you know, this campaign style with cost caps and this and that. Like you can get really nitty gritty with it. But typically with agency, it's like you have something that smashes for one brand, you typically test it with other things. You're like, I'm going to, you know, this works so well here. Let's just roll out this campaign style across everybody. And it doesn't work for everybody, obviously, but some it will. And you kind of can cross pollinate there. But yeah, I'd say with the caveat being, usually it's not like cross industry, like you're trying to pull like, you know, supplement stuff into apparel or something. So kind of depends, but yeah.
What are you seeing that's currently working with Range Leather? And I can only imagine how challenging that business industry is.
Yeah, it's tough, I think. So, I mean, what's working is in terms of like advertising and marketing is on the front end, nothing that you see on Twitter. It's like it's like interest targeting and single images and just really kind of old school 2018 buying. That's kind of what I'm doing. I'm still the ad buyer, so that's where that comes from. But then on the retention side and email side, and that's all like fundamentals. I think the biggest thing that's a challenge for us that may not be a challenge for everybody and every business listening would be the education piece of leather. Like people know what leather is, but there's at the surface level, they know what leather is, but the education piece of like types of leather and leather care and how leather stuff is made and like the different levels of that is challenging to get across to especially new users or new visitors. But like the people that get it already, like those are our best customers because they get it, obviously. So that's kind of been the biggest broad challenge.
The challenge I see with your business is like anyone on Etsy can get a little kit and start, making their own wallets. I feel like the barrier to entry is probably very similar to Beard Brand in the sense that the barrier to entry is very low. And subsequently, it's good to start a business, but also challenging because you have tons of competition. How do you guys set yourself apart in a really crowded marketplace?
Yeah. So I guess one limiting factor, like one barrier to entry, like you're definitely right. People can just buy some leather, craft some stuff and go. The challenge is you don't actually like real leather stuff has really low margins because the leather itself costs a ton and the cost of labor costs a ton. Like it's one person making one thing and they're just going to pay themselves off the dividends and not pay themselves as an employee or vice versa. Like that obviously saves money on the COGS side. But so for us, that's been like, we still get the highest quality leather you can get from Horween, and which costs the most in terms of material costs. But what we've been able to do is really dial in our processes to keep our costs down in terms of like our crafters are amazing. They can whip out these products super fast with a super high degree of accuracy, very little errors. And so that's kind of both I'd say that and then the product design itself of like, how can we be leather efficient? How could we be hardware efficient? How can we make the crafting process efficient with that design? And, that's all on the product side. So that's what kind of makes it, if someone spun up an Etsy store, you'd be able to get to a certain level, but to be able to crack into kind of this next level business, you'd have to dial in your processes and get that all worked out.
Yeah. And you feel like you've got a pretty good process for that. I mean, you're up in the Northwest. I don't know if you guys have ever tried this. So if I have, my apologies for not knowing, but Nick's and White's Boots are over in Spokane. I don't know if you guys have ever done any kind of like collaborations with them. It seems like it would have a huge overlap in the type of customers.
Yeah, for sure. It's a great idea. I actually had a buddy who ran social for Nick's, so I'm fairly familiar. The funny thing about leather brands that I find, I haven't run into a lot of dialed in leather brands. Like the nature of leather and getting your leather in and doing things with it is just, even us, like we feel pretty dialed in, but it's like you kind of don't know when you're going to get your leather that you ordered and what and how much of it. And it's just kind of chaotic that way. So, and I know that, the inside of range is a little bit that way on the material side. I know I won't speak for Nick's, but from what I've heard, there's similar challenges. And so that can limit the collaboration factor, but I do think it's a great idea. And boots is something like we will likely never touch from our side. So it'd be a great kind of mix to add to the list for sure.
What are the products you guys are focusing on?
Yeah. So on the leather side, wallets, bags, and accessories, which is like jewelry and keychains and stuff. Interestingly, hats are snapback hats that have the leather patches on them. That makes up, a good third, if not half of the business sales wise. So that's kind of an interesting thing too, because that's a whole different production process. But yeah, wallets, bags, accessories, hats are kind of our big categories.
Why do you think the hats crush for you guys? Is that less competitive space or lower price point?
Well, like people that wear hats, they have like thousands of hats. It seems like I don't wear hats myself, but like hat people have lots of hats. So like the repeat purchase rate's there. Ours is unique because we actually have a custom leather that Horween made for us for our hats. It's full grain leather, but it was designed to take our heat stamping better so that the shape of the logo on the leather itself is more clear and doesn't smudge and wears in really well. So I think the leather part of it on the hat is really unique and really cool. So that's a piece of it. And, lower lower barrier to entry on the price side too, like $30 hat versus a $80 wallet. There's more volume there. And you really, you buy, at least from everybody I've talked to, you kind of have a wallet forever. And it takes a heavy lift to switch wallets, or bags and purses, I believe, are similar, versus a hat. It's like, oh yeah, I'll take another hat. So I think they're two different animals in terms of buyer behavior.
Are you able to profitably acquire a customer on a $30 product, or is the value on the long term?
Yeah, actually we are. And basically that comes down to a few things. One is, again, going back to processes, like our COGS on the hats themselves are really low. So our break-even CAC can be pretty high. Like comparable to what you'd find across various clients in at least Facebook and Google. So that helps. And then typically we see people buy 2 hats. Like it's kind of like our AOV is like $50 or $60 on the hats. So it's less often that someone's just buying the one-off hat. I think, various factors can play into that, but that also helps.
And then you mentioned it seems like hat people have 1,000 hats. Are they just sticking and buying hats, or are you seeing cross-pollination in your other categories?
There's definitely a little bit of cross-pollination. There's somewhat of a kind of a copy and communication challenge when you're trying to pull from hats to leather goods. I have for instance, I have a cross-sell flow that drips out the different product categories to the other categories essentially. And it's a lot easier from the data side of things, from what I've seen, for a wallet purchaser to go and buy 3 hats because they already love range. They love the wallet. They're like, oh, they do hats too. Cool. But going from hats to a bag or a wallet is much heavier lift because of some of the things we talked about with the pricing difference and education on a hat with a leather patch on. It's like, okay, I get what that is. But then going no, you should switch your wallet to this one, or you should, we have this journal, we have this accessory, we have all these things. It's kind of it's a different, honestly, it's been something I've been working through to figure out what's that, the market's there. It seems like the alignment demographically and psychographically is the same. So it's just a messaging challenge of how do we go from just buying this $30 hat or a couple $30 hats to high quality leather education kind of a thing.
Are you doing that through your email flows, or is that also through paid channels?
Education side is more through the email and retention side of things. I do have plans to build it into the front end of the site. And there's a lot of that. I talked to Sean Brandt recently from Audit, and one thing he told me that was great, I think I tweeted about it, was yeah, you say full grain, for instance, all over the site, which to me means something, but to everyone else, what is full grain? What does that mean? Leather's leather. There's different grades of leather. Who even knew that? And that just was eye-opening from, maybe that's a negative effect of being brand side, is just being siloed, but getting that same, how do we communicate the quality more clearly to people and explain that even on first visit from an ad kind of a thing. So that's been definitely top of mind for me as of late.
Top of mind, top green. As a consumer, I remember genuine leather. It's oh man, this is genuine leather, which ironically is probably the furthest from the truth when it comes to the leather quality. It's just kind of glue together leather bits from how I understand it. But
that's funny.
I wonder how you could do that if it's, just kind of a side profile of most leather wallets, and then, being able to see, the thickness of your wallets, or how do you think you're going to execute on that? And then I guess the other thing is y'all are pretty small. So you're wearing a lot of hats, right? You're doing email, you're doing paid, you're doing website optimization.
Yeah, currently I'm hoping to build out more of a team for myself here in the short term. Cause I'm kind of my buckets, my personal buckets are marketing, site, and ops. So a lot of things kind of flow into that: ads and emails in the marketing side, promo calendar, the whole site, all the merchandising. And but I think in terms of communication on the leather itself, one idea I thought about, and Sean kind of also helped me brainstorm, was how a full grain leather piece, whatever it is going to age and change and develop patina more than like genuine is just like is what it is, or like the different levels have different, I guess, levels of manipulation done to them. And the more manipulation that's done to them on the front end, the less they change, which for a lot of like, Gucci or brands that want like the same exact look forever, they go for that lower quality technically stuff and it'll stay that way and they can treat it. But for us, part of the beautiful part is that it's full grain and it'll age. It is kind of an interesting problem because, if you go to our site, it's all like brand new, just made stuff. So I think, one idea is to figure out how to age, like wear each wallet for like a month and then take the product photo to show like, this is what this turns into. This is what you can expect for it to feel like, or even do kind of like Bellroy does with like, day 30, day 100, day 365, day 700. But obviously, that takes 700 days to execute on. So I don't know yet.
I'm sure there's ways to accelerate that, challenge test it. The denim people, I imagine, would really understand, worn in, not worn out kind of mentality that goes around. I think like, when I see like the challenges you're facing, I really do think, obviously content is a big part of that, or a big part of what you want to do. Like, have you guys gotten into like YouTube or TikTok or, these channels where you can really tell your story continuously in a longer medium than the 30 seconds you have on a product page?
Yeah, for sure. We haven't much. This is definitely something I want to get into. Yeah, I think the challenge for me on that in thinking through is kind of like, I don't know, even thinking about Beard Brand, right? You have like this, it's like a demographic, psychographic kind of connection to each other around a topic, but you've broadened it out, like you have essentially hair care, kind of skincare stuff going on. And that's the product that everyone kind of congregates around. But then there's these other periphery topics that everyone also enjoys and typically enjoys together. So it becomes this community that's thriving that way. And so I'm trying to figure out what that is for Range and then how to cultivate that. I guess, what would you do? If I handed you Range and said, we need to build some kind of community aspect to this or content aspect to this, like, what would you spin up a blog or spin up a community, or what would you write about?
I mean, like, so my unsolicited consulting hat, like the first thing I think about was just the name Range Leather and your logo is like, how do I like foster almost like an outdoor life community? I feel like is something that goes along. And then like, what is that imagery that I would do with the brand in terms of like, everyone's outdoors, they're using the products like on the campfire, they're overlanding, they're kind of like in nature, and they're using products that are meant to kind of handle those elements and like live up to the demands of a consumer who isn't, like me on the office and keyboard all day. Like my stuff doesn't get dinged up at all because I'm not really using it, but your stuff gets used, or it's designed to be able to be used and thrown around. So I would probably like, especially being in kind of, I don't know if you guys are technically the Pacific Northwest or not, like into Wyoming, but the Mountain West, is that what you guys call yourselves?
Yeah, just the West.
The
West.
West.
The Wild West, man.
The Wild West. Yeah,
There's
I mean, like the Wild
tumbleweeds,
West.
like my height blowing around.
Or like hunting, and I would try to like,
So would you blog, like if we were going to spin up a blog, let's say, because you guys have a great blog promotional calendar designed up, is that the kind of content things you'd be looking more at rather than, I guess, on top of mixing in leather education? It'd be like, we're going to talk about overlanding or hunting or different categories.
Yeah, I mean, so the question really comes down to is like, what is the Range Leather mission? Do you guys have one? Do you have core values? Like, why does this company exist?
Yeah, I mean, essentially it's to bring back the idea that things should be made to last. Like everything's disposable these days. And so it's centered around like, bring back the days where you bought something and you had it forever and you continue to fix it. It develops a story.
Yeah.
As you develop a story, kind of a thing.
So, yeah, I mean, like built to last, but like built to last, why? It's like, why do you want something that lasts forever? Is it to be able to like, have a legacy that you pass on to your kids? And it's like, this is the family legacy. This is the bag that your grandfather used, and I'm passing it on to you, and all the patina that comes with it. Like, so there's like something in there, like, so it's built to last, and it's like, we believe in multi-generational families that share the secrets that they've learned over time. And then like
Got
it would be
and
like
that's
that would
the
be
connection to all the content.
Right. So you have this
topic.
You have this overarching theme that you don't necessarily have to like make all this content about like multi-generational living or whatever it is, but you can think about that. You tell this story, you tell the stories of, people who have passed on the farm from year to year, and kind of how the barn has
the common thread through that links all of the stories there. That makes sense.
And then I think that's what's going to help you distinguish the brand from everybody else. It's like, whatever that is. I don't know if it's, the outdoors, the overlanding, or the I think like there's probably some appeal to like multi-generational living, especially being out of Wyoming. I think of like all these ranches and, the houses and the properties that get passed on, and kind of like, building wealth by buying things that last is kind of another appeal. Like, you buy it once and you hang on to it, rather than this consumerist mindset. So I think there's a lot of different angles you can go. And then from a content perspective, obviously you want to have like understanding leather, like introductory things, and then kind of like product things. And then you also want to make sure that lifestyle is built into it as well.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for that consulting. That was awesome.
Yeah. That'll be $1,000, Tim. So
you can bill me after the show.
Okay. So, I mean, like, you talked about wanting to build a team, and you also talked about operations. Like, operations and marketing seems like two different things. How are you able to maintain focus in all of this?
Oh, man. Yeah, that's tough. I mean, I do have to break it up. I break up my day. I'm pretty regimented about how I run my day-to-day here. So, yeah, and they're definitely different beasts. Pretty much, if I break it down, it's like the first half of my day is marketing. And I get all my marketing stuff out, get everything planned, get everything made, work with the team that I have so far on different things, all the kind of marketing stuff you would expect. And the back half of my day, so I go home for lunch, see the family, hang out, regroup, come back, different mindset. Now I'm in ops mode, and it's like, okay, what fires are we fighting here? What processes need to be updated and optimized? That's what I'm working with. Because, operations for me is working with our wholesale team. Wholesale is huge for us. And then shipping, I manage the shipping team because we do all the shipping, pick, pack, ship here. And then all the customer experience, like CX, everything. So that's kind of the back half of my day. But to answer your question, it's mostly just keeping a regimented schedule and sticking to kind of the two half mindsets throughout the day, and just focusing that way. It's the best I've been able to do.
Yeah. And I guess like the operations, of all the operations things, they seem to be kind of tied to marketing as well, like wholesale and getting orders out. Not like you're not ordering leathers, you're not like designing products, you're not doing that stuff.
Yeah. It's been actually a beautiful thing, because that's what Kyle is. His zone of genius is product design, leather, and that kind of thing. We have a production manager for both leather goods and hats that run the day-to-day with the crafters. So that's been great for Kyle to be able to open up his space to do more of that product design. So I don't have to handle that. I mean, I have input in all those things, and the production managers do come to me to solve their process problems, but that's kind of one-off. But I handle all the ops stuff that's tied to marketing, which it's really cool though, because I know what I'm doing. Like if I'm pushing an ad really hard that's doing great and orders go up, I can move my shipping team schedule around to accommodate the orders. Or like there's things like that are really cool to be able to move around during the day. Or like working with Josh, production manager, he'll be like, oh, we're running out of this leather faster than we thought, and I can turn ads off for this and that. And it's just all really close and really quick and adapting. But then at the same time, it's fun to do things like I'll have a shipping team meeting, and they'll be like, hey, we should do, a Christmas card instead of a regular brand card in the boxes. It's like, sweet. I'll pass that to my designer. That'll be done by, in 2 days from now, we'll print it and get that going. Like we can kind of adapt really fast on that front. So it is like definitely a different mindset, but I love having eyes on both at the same time, because it makes it so, and another piece too is in talking about like profitability and MER and CAC and everything, is I can change product COGS because I build in like shipping and logistics stuff into COGS. I can optimize that and it can buy me more CAC to use on the marketing side so that they can kind of influence each other that way cost wise, which is really fun.
You talked about you want to hire some people. What are the things that you hold on to and what are the things that you pass on to new hires?
Yeah. So I guess another challenge in that is we are trying our best to keep everybody here in house. Like we don't have remote. We don't use agencies. Like everybody is here, but we're in Laramie, Wyoming. So the pool is very limited. We have UW here, which is not the UW that you think of, but that's kind of, we have a lot of college kids and then we have the folks that work at the school, and that's like the majority of the town. So that's a challenge. But in terms of what I'm trying to hand off is more of I'm trying to convert my time into critical thinking, decision-making, strategy time, and less execution, because I'm still doing a lot of the real execution myself. Like I design the emails myself and I make most of the ads myself. I've got a designer now who's getting ramped up. So more of the emails and more of the ads will be done by her, which is great. So things like that. It's like the processes that I can build that someone else can execute on is kind of where I try to design that, and then making it so that I can just come in, think about overall strategy and planning and make decisions and help unblock people is kind of the long-term game.
Sweet, man. Where can people follow you or support you or buy some cool leather goods?
Yeah, rangeleather.com. And if you use code Tim's Friend, you can get 15% off.
No apostrophe in that though, right?
No apostrophe, just TIMS Friend. 15 off. And
then you are also on Twitter, right?
Yes. Tim_Aton, TIM_ATON on Twitter. Yeah, that's the best place to connect. I mean, DM me, do whatever. I'm an open book. So the Twitter community has been great. I've made lots of friends via Twitter. So definitely hit me up.
Sweet, man. Well, this has been another e-commerce conversations. I learned a lot. I had fun learning about your business as well. Tim, cheers.
Yeah. Thanks.
And keep on growing.